Okay, good morning and welcome back to day 2 of the We Love Games conference. This is sort of the online segment of everything. And I just would basically introduce Diana, who is passionate about helping indie games successfully crowdfund their games and help with all sorts of aspects of bringing a game to life, such as social media and marketing. She has turned her hands into a huge range of gaming industry roles. She's an expert in social media marketing, as well as running demos, editing playbooks, planning conventions, and much, much more. Jumping into games with both feet, she started her marketing company, Dina Said So Studio, to help game designers and publishers with all things involved in connecting games to their audience. And so with that, Dina, take it away. Always about technical difficulties in the mornings. I think my computer needs some more coffee as much as I do. Again, we'll just kicking this off the second stage track with Deanna Ramses from Deanna Said So Studio.
Dina Said So Studio, thank you.
Sorry, apologies. Indie marketing for everyone. So Dina, take it away.
Thank you so much for having me. So I've been running my studio now for a little bit over 3 years, and in that time, we've been working with game designers from all over the world. More than 300 people we've been helping on their journey from having a finished product and getting it into the market. It's been absolutely fantastic, and we've been able to gather a team of 6 people. When we talk with our clients about what marketing really is, it seems to be like people often feel like there's a high step on a threshold in order to get started. So we always sort of try to break it down to the actionable items so that we can all get started. And that's really how I wanted to focus this talk today. Because in the middle of any sort of marketing efforts, you have to start with you and your team. What are you good at and what are your skills? So that you really can sort of plan based on that. Because if you're all trying to learn things on the fly, being new, it can be really challenging to get started. Demonstrate what sort of expertise and utilize the expertise that you've gathered in order to move forward with your campaign. So if one of you are really good at a particular set, try to find a way that you can use that set and the networking and around it in order to push forward. Networking and showing off your demos is a large part of sort of marketing you and your team when starting off. Events such as these can be fantastic for that. Really look for opportunities to network, be it conventions such as this one or others like Gamescom, DevCom, or the smaller ones, more local efforts. When we start with a product, we really need to think about who is it for? By realizing what kind of people will be willing to get the product and like the offer that you have available, you can start filing down as to who are your super audience. Identify and target the people who are most keen on it because those will tell you the most. And along your journey, do gather all the data possible. Because the more we know, the better informed we'll be for our next steps in our planning. Look for collaboration opportunities and partnerships along on your journey. Be it shout outs on social media can get you, or it could be mentoringships. it can get you really far, because a lot of people will forget to showcase and talk about these opportunities along your way. Sorry, my presentation is having issues here. I think it's really important when we're talking about what you have to offer. It's really see what we can do with it, the sort of inspiration that you can gather from it, and the interactions with the community. By building your own community, be it in a mailing letter, in Discord, keeping contact with them and continuously talking with them is often a point that I see a lot of people failing at. And it's really sad because these people essentially can give a lot of your marketing strategy to you. If they are wanting to talk to you over at Discord and they really want to gather and chat there and have events, then that is something that you should be able to look into and supply them with. By making the journey as seamless as possible and as engaging as possible, you're really going to show as an active, engaging community, and that's going to attract more people. Get them to want to talk to others about what you have. Get them to share. Give them the ability to share as easy as possible, being in an open Discord link, or it could be, sharing the demos, or even just linking around and being available on all the social platforms, even if you're not intending to spending time on them yourself. Just having the handles available for those who want to give you a shout out. Because while we're not great at using all of their platforms, because there's so many different social medias, you've got community features on Steam, you've got TikTok, you've got your Twitters and your threads and whatnot. And it can be a lot. So, but still just gathering all those handles can make it easier for your audience if they are on those platforms, even if you're not putting effort into them yourself. It makes it easier for them to share and for people to find you. I usually recommend that most of the people we work with, we say to choose 3 platforms so that you're reducing where you are and when you're putting in your efforts. Because I think anyone can really get to do about 3 platforms and choose them wisely. For some people, that's going to be LinkedIn. For some people, that's going to be Twitter, or X as we call it now. For others, that's just going to be Facebook or TikTok. But find one that resonates with you, that you feel that you can utilize, that can really help you communicate what your journey is looking like. Because by bringing people with you on your journey, it's going to make people see the progress that you're making, and it's going to be interesting, and they're going to be able to have that sort of exclusive VIP look behind the scenes. Research the sort of how people are using the platform. If most devs around you or other people with similar products are sharing a particular type, see if this is a trend that you can also sort of participate in. Be it screenshots, whether it's Screenshot Thursday, which I really love to see, is that you can often sort of just participate in these event tags. Look for other similar event tags in your community that you can also jump on, because they're great for amplifying voices, and they're great for also finding new people to collaborate with. After we've sort of found our audience, it's to prepare for the sort of launch and releases that we're looking for. For some people, that's going to be a crowdfunding platform like GameFound, Kickstarter, or even Indiegogo. For others, it's going to be, straight out from demo to full release on Steam, or it could even be, for some of you, a retail release. And it's really knowing where that journey is taking you and working your way back. So by X amount of time, we're not going to need to be able to do these things, and really make yourself a timeline. I call it the road to marketing success. By 6 months, know what the offer is going to be. Know how you're going to start working on how you're presenting it. By 5 months in, know how you're going to distribute the release, and start looking for influencers that you're wanting to work with. As you're getting closer, you're going to want to sign up with different content creators, most likely, They're a great way to amplify your voices. They can be absolutely fantastic in order to have that extra engagement and showcasing it a very lovely community. And then as they're starting to share their content, you're going to want to take said content and you're going to cut it up to small video clips that you can share on like YouTube Shorts or TikTok, Instagram, or even Twitter for those who are using that. It's really knowing what to do with what is referred to as user-generated content that can really separate you from the masses. A lot of people will have a streamer share their game, and that's it. They're relying entirely upon the influencer to take it to the next step, to talk about what you have to offer, and for that to just be enough. But by taking those extra steps of looking at the content, reviewing what was said, how they were saying things, and learning from that, and also making additional content and video clips out of it, you're going to separate yourself from all of the others who are just getting the streams out. It's going to allow you to spend less time on making content. And I find that this is the biggest threshold of them all in the marketing journey. It's what is social media content. And really looking at how people are presenting your game when it's out of your hands can basically tell you what they find interesting, and then you can focus on that. So what we often do is that every streamer we have, their unique angle on selling the product is basically telling us what content are we trying to deliver. And then we fill in the blanks with more of similar type, and so that we're emphasizing how they thought of the product to push it to that next step. In terms of social media content and what to do on socials, there's a couple of ways of going with it. So we've already talked about using no more than like 3 platforms in order to be very focused about what you're doing and to choosing them wisely based on your skills and how you like the communities on said platforms. And after that, what you need to do is to start thinking about what are we sharing. So we already know streams is going to be a part of it, maybe. Maybe we're going to do a lot of collaborations or we're going to be talks. These are going to inform you of what is going to be your content playlist. I usually say to focus on only 3 content pillars, but it's going to allow you to be very precise on what you're doing. Sharing your expertise is going to be one. Then in that case, you're going to be, maybe it's thought form content, maybe it's short videos where you're doing educational content, or it could even be your opinion pieces in around different subjects. I know some of you are probably, already know about Unity, and I did see a couple of devs hopping on Twitter as a great platform to share their sort of expertise in the area and what that could mean for the industry. That is an educational piece of content. And it can be a part of your marketing strategy for what you and your studio is doing. I think that's an excellent example. In addition to that, once you start looking at what do you have available, what sort of resources does a team have or you have, and you're constructing your 3 content pillars, we're going to think about breaking those down into further pieces. So by each of those pieces of the content pillars, be it educational or you want to showcase the product, break those into an additional 3. And then it could be, what does the game do? What is the fun parts of the game? And it can also be, what is something we learned while making the game? If we're doing a what did we learn while making the game, we can really look at that as a topic, and then we can break it into another segments, because now we're starting to make our content plan. Our content plan can be very different depending on the scope of our project, but we usually say to look at around 2 to 3 posts a week as an absolute minimum. Unless you're doing LinkedIn, then once a week is a plenty, unless it's a launch week. Up until then, you can sort of pace yourself accordingly. Some platforms require higher engagement, like Twitter. Other require sort of consistently almost once a day to 3 times a week. like Instagram. Facebook is more of an ad hoc platform and can do quite nicely on just like 3 times in one day during a week, and then no content for a couple of days. Which is why choosing the platform can be quite important. And once you look at those pieces and you're breaking them down, like what can you say that is interesting about it? What can you say that is informal about it? What can you say about your educational part of it? So be it funny things that we learned during the game. It could be everything from like spaghetti legs that happened when you made an update. And you could talk about either like why this happened. You could talk about like, haha, this was super funny. Look at what we made today. But it could also be the strange forgeries that happens while making games. And that could be a different way of taking the exact same conversation. And when we're at this level, we're really talking about the specific pieces of content. And already here, we have informed, we answered a lot of questions that people might have and the curiosity points that people may have about you and your product and your studio. And what we then say that if you can then repeat some of these pieces, if they're evergreen content that can be shared multiple times, and you fill your calendars with enough of these pieces, you're really going to look at being able to plan multiple months in advance instead of every week be, oh my gosh, I have to post on socials. What am I posting? Because it can be incredibly stressful if that is how you're operating on your efforts and marketing plan. When you get into launch, a lot of these pieces can be repeated again, and you can share much more frequently. We find that after, in around launch, if you can share at least once a day, that is the most optimal way of going about it, and continue to look for those collaboration opportunities and partnerships with people, be it shout outs on social media, be it in the newsletter and sharing, or even if you're doing a crowdfunding campaign, in platform-specific updates. And while doing it, don't forget about the community features on Steam, because there's sometimes people there who are chatting away that you can also capture as a part of your expanded outreach. And if anyone have any questions to me about any of these things, so do let me know. I'll be hanging around for the Q&A after this. And yeah, I hope it was useful and educational.
Hey, Dina.
Hi.
Very interesting talk, I have to say. I just a couple points that I wanted to quickly review.
Yeah.
That I think it's really good to understand kind of where you're going to be distributing your game and finding people that can and help you kind of influence in those sections. But building that community is really important, I think, not only for the game developer and finding the audience, but also finding some sort of social support. When you have handles for all these different social media messages, how do you sort of manage the noise of all of this if you're constantly checking these things, if you're constantly getting messages?
We usually turn off the advice on turning off any notifications because it makes it a lot easier to sort of suppress that noise. All of these platforms will have auto replies available. So we usually direct them either to an email and tell them that this platform is not being monitored on a regular basis so that you're not suffering for any sort of non-responsive there. And then we try to sometimes for some of our clients, if we start seeing a lot of messages popping up, because obviously there's a counter on like Facebook and on Instagram of the unread messages, we go in about every 2 weeks and we just go and quickly sort through so we're not being constantly interrupted.
Yeah, that sounds really good. Another thing that really spoke to me is empowering other people to create your content. Basically letting them sort of highlight what they think is special and interesting about your game. and then use that to sort of crowdsource your marketing with the user generated
Yeah.
content. Do you have an example of a game or two that was sort of moving in one direction, but then the audience that sort of found the game came up with some crazy ideas and sort of made the team or the game developer pivot in a new direction?
I have the perfect example of this. So during Spiel last week, a game was released that was called Dragster, and in the game, you're basically making up a drag queen sort of catwalk, and the while the creators is more of an ally, they didn't know enough drag queens to really sort of pull it to the next level. But a couple of queens found the game, absolutely loved it during a demo that they found on a local event there, and they took it completely off the hands from the creator and started promoting it inside their own community. And they ended up hiring this queen, and it was absolutely fantastic to see them now being ready for their launch for retail, being completely led by just drag queens, and this person being completely ruled it. I have no idea what's happening, but it's working. Just let them go with it. Um, was going in a very different direction on sort of promoting it as, the game has hand management and the game has, action selections, and you're doing this thing towards gamers, to being completely now, just about being a drag queen and its own community.
That's so amazing. That's kind of it for questions here. Is there anything else that you'd like to add? Or I guess you'll be available in Discord if people have additional questions.
Yeah, absolutely. As I will be available on the Discord, of course, as a part of like my own sayings, attend and crush these conventions and network as much as possible. I think the most important thing that I can mention here today is probably set yourself some own goals and try to work towards them, but don't set them too lofty. Make them realistic, something that feels achievable within this week, within this month, within this quarter, within this year, to really guide yourself. Because if you're starting off with massive goals, you can feel really defeated and it can feel very challenging to continue. And most important of all is don't change yourself for who you are. Just be you. The authentic you is going to bring more people in than an inauthentic you.
That is so true. Again, Dina, thank you so much.
Very welcome.
COVID.
Okay, and welcome back to stage 2, day 2 of the We Love Games conference, taking place ostensibly in Helsinki, but basically globally around the world. So maybe wishing you a good morning is not the best thing if you're somewhere else. So I wish you a good whatever time of day it is for you. Our next speaker is Najib Fares of the Four Winds Entertainment. He is an accomplished award-winning game professional with more than 14 years of experience in the video game industry. He has been fighting for marginalized people, including Arab and MENA indigenous representation in video games, and dealing with the problems they still face throughout his entire career. His other industry work includes being the co-chair of the IGDA Game Credits Special Interest Group, and advising and being a public speaker at various conferences, including the Game Quality Forum, IndieWay, GDC, and much more. With that, I'll hand the stage over to you and let you take it from here.
Yeah, thank you, Christopher. Hi, everyone. Throughout this session, this is something we kind of presented during GDC, but because, GDC is a little bit of a gatekeeping mechanics here where they kind of charge for us to access resource, we figured we wanted to share as much as possible all the learning. So so we will basically talk about how we can help everyone improve game crediting at your studio, and what's the impact of crediting in your career in the industry, as well as any sort of advantages of what crediting could do and what miscrediting could actually harm in the industry. Obviously, there's going to be a lot of resource, but don't worry. Around the middle and the end of the panel, you will have a QR code that you'll be able to scan, and it will directly send you to the associated page on the IGDA website to give you a quick look, and so you can understand what all the resources that are available. So we're going to spend a little bit short to, let's say, 25 minutes in total discussing game crediting. I'll start with some background of the problem set and some data, and then we'll talk about some strategies for discovery work on how to approach your studio credit issues and how to approach them. And then eventually we will share some toolkits which are free to use for numerous different elements, whether it is on let's say, a recommendation of what the crediting should be in terms of building your own guidelines, as well as actual toolkits that you could use for different engines, including Unreal Engine and Unity Engine as well. So as a quick overview, already Christopher kind of presented me. Yes, I'm not Katie Golden. Apologies for that. She was the original presenter for the same panel at GDC. But I'm Nazif Fares, and I come from a mixed background. My mother is Spanish and my father is Lebanese, and I've started my career in the Middle East, where things were a bit rough to get into the gaming industry. So throughout my career, I kind of grinded through to get to a point where I would finally get credited, but that took 50 games for me to finally got my first credit, which was a humble special thanks on Metal Gear Solid 5. Other than being IGDA Game Credits SIG's vice chair, I'm also on the IGDA board of director. I'm the head of lock and comms at the Four Winds Entertainment, and I've worked at numerous other companies, most recently Activision Blizzard, Power League Gaming in the Middle East, and much more. And apologies for the sniff. So the first thing is why game credit, and what did game credit look like back in the old days? And the funny part is that game credit are as old as games. Some in a sense, they were kind of considered controversy, and developers had to kind of hide game credits in secret ways, right? Either where it was a secret level or an Easter egg, and that was mainly largely regarded because of let's say, the culture at that time. For example, this is here Adventure, the game Adventure, and the Atari was the publisher, and their whole philosophy was that they wanted to anonymize the devs, but they were against that. And so the CEO was quoted calling Atari devs strung out prima donnas specifically, and then the devs produced shirts saying the same. And in that way, in that specific game, Warren Robinett was a program a series of specific steps that the player could do, and then eventually would fly under the radar of other devs, and then it would reveal a secret room that would actually appear all the names of the people that worked on this. Now, there's other ways of that. There's also, if you probably have heard his name, Ed Fries, sorry. He also discovered an even older Easter egg in an arcade game called Spaceship One from 1977, and it's currently holding the Guinness World Book record of the first credit. It's just a little touch that I wanted to show you, just to tell you that game crediting is not just something new, right? It's been around for many years, and it's been, let's say, a fight that a lot of people have been fighting for as well. Now, here's the state of game crediting, and a lot of this is not, like, it's considered controversy, but really it has been going on for many years, and the hype has been going up. A lot of people go online and kind of tend to, let's say, talk about it and be very vocal about it, but then the hype goes down because everyone kind of forgets about it and then jumps into the next bandwagon of what is wrong with the industry at the moment. In this case, we figured that instead of evaluating and working on the game credit policy, or let's say the guidelines for a policy, we wanted to kind of get the quantifiable and the qualitative measures for kind of supporting how to change the guidelines, because the guidelines were built back in 2014, but they've never been updated to kind of match the pace of what the industry has become, right? There's been a lot of new style of games, games that were never taken into consideration for crediting, things like, let's say, live service game, MMOs, etc., where obviously the game is still alive for many years, but the credits just keep on building, and no new additional players or people that got involved in the project were added into that project. Now, in this case, we've heard it all. We've heard so many stories. I will just share a couple of stats in the coming slides, just to give you some overview of what to expect and where we stand. So in general, what is the state of game? It's pretty much inconsistent. It's been inconsistent throughout the industry, even though we are considered another form of media entertainment. But in regard to, let's say, the movie industry, the film industry, or the music industry, our policy or our guidelines or unified guidelines don't exist. That's mainly because of numerous factors, mostly because we don't have a sort of standardized union or standardized, let's say, lobby group that could fight for us, like the SAG-AFTRA or even the Actors Guild of America, for example, in the US. But there's other aspect in other part of the world, right? There's none of the unions, for example, in Europe are fighting for that fight. It's just considered, let's say, deprioritized in their agenda, right? So that we fall into the trap where there's really not a strongly adhered or universal standard or set of best practices widely recognized by the game industry. So it's feeling covered at some studios, kind of take care of it, but some others just don't bother even with it. And I'm not going to name names. Obviously, I'm not here to shame some studios or some developers or some publishers. That's not the point of this, let's say, of this panel. Obviously, inaccuracy is quite a let's say a word that pops out a lot during our surveys that we've ran through the help of the IGDA with numerous developers from all around the world. Basically, employees are often mislabeled, unlabeled, or left off, and in some instance, they're even dead named. They're even named wrongly, misspelled. So things have kind of affected them quite directly, all these developers. And I'm saying developers here just as a side note. Developers in this situation, I'm talking about anyone that took part of developing the game, whether you are in what the industry considers supporting services, right, like QA, localization, publishing, marketing, etc., or let's say the purest, what we consider purest form of development, like artists and artists and coders and etc. Just to give you an idea, as a personal anecdote, I've been, like I've said, I've worked on roughly 50 games where I've supported numerous aspects of different verticals at the same time. And I've never gotten a single credit just because I was a subcontractor. So I was not considered a full-time, I was not considered in the books of the auditing of the credits, never considered a eligible person to be credited for the work that I've done that was as much as my colleagues that had a full-time, let's say, employment at that employer. So this is what we look like. You know, there's a lot of press around miscrediting, outrage, and then, you know, like I said, the news cycle churn, and then about 3 days later, there's no real movement or change in that situation. The other aspect is that most people do believe that crediting is important. Wouldn't it be weird that, you know, most of these artists, let's say in the purest form of art, let's say sculpture, painters, etc., back from the Renaissance days, never signed their painting? Wouldn't it be weird for them not to be credited for their work of all these, let's say, all these work of art that they've created and that kind of defined our culture, our modern culture? That would be wrong. It's the same thing in our aspect. The gaming industry at the end of the day is a form of art. It's a form of expression, and we should be credited for it. So there's a lot of meaningful stories that matters. In my there's a lot of importance as well for people coming from let's say underserved region, right? So markets where a career growth is super slow due to the fact that it's underdeveloped, or let's say underserved completely by the industry, such as the SWANA region, so Southwest Asia and North Africa, or even Africa as a whole, to some extent even Latin America, and even the Indian subcontinent and Southeast Asia. All these regions, it's really hard to get in. Crediting does play an important part to boost their career and to boost their portfolio, and sort of help with also the mental load of beating the imposter syndrome of being finally recognized for the work that you have done. So here's some of highlight of some of our survey correspondent. We had around, I believe, 800 respondent or 600 respondents, sorry, from all around the world, and about 2/3 were full-time employees, a quarter were self-employed or contractors or via vendors, contractors, while the remaining 2% were considered others, so other forms of employment, whether it is, it could be just a, let's say, a subcontractor on an even deeper level of the food chain as they see it on let's say on the hierarchy. Given this, much of this talk will be geared today mostly for full-time employees, because they are the people that have the power to make a positive change for the entire industry. When we talked about the years of the industry, we've noticed that the majority of them were around 4 to 9 years, which is pretty much the average churn rate of the career these days. We're looking at most people don't last most of 5 years in the industry, and that's kind of a given due to the way the industry has been treating its employees. But I'm not going to open that that wall of a topic, but here's some stats in terms of respondents so you can have an idea. And then we looked at history of crediting and how it's been affected. We've noticed here, that's where it was quite shocking, is that there's kind of a split, right? There's been half saying always or often, while the other saying completely, like never at all, or seldom or sometimes, which is really, really, really bad when we consider the industry being trying to, portray this image of being inclusive and whatnot, but that obviously doesn't reflect the fact that it doesn't include the crediting people for their own work. We've asked about the importance of crediting. 62% of the survey taker have considered crediting as being very important or important for securing work specifically. Because like I've said, especially in the, let's say in the freelancer and subcontractor, it's a way to justify their portfolio rather than because there's no other way for them to really go to for let's say an HR rep to kind of speak to another company and say, do you remember employing this freelancer 5 years ago, for example? Confidence in crediting was another topic that was mostly, are you confident basically about being credited for your work? We got into a 2/3 of saying that they're very confident or somewhat confident, but we still see 33% unconfident. So we understand that previous experience from respondents are with the importance and the confidence is in the future crediting, and also wanted to understand where developers sit in their understanding of crediting with their employer, which is the next one of the next slide. This is where things really start to get interesting in terms of survey. We asked respondent if they're client or studio. Client in this side, as in like if you are a vendor, does your client, the publisher or the development studio credits, or you are a direct, let's say, employee or subcontractor of that studio? And yes, as you can see, the yes is actually pretty measly small. We're talking about barely 17% saying yes, that they have a internal credit policy, which is really, really alarming, considering like, how are you doing all these credits then if you don't have a policy, if you don't know how to pick people, if there's no guideline on how to credit people that have worked on a project? The next part was pertaining to the studio you work at. Have there been internal changes to the credit policy that you're aware in the past 5 years? Again, based on how the industry has changed and how we have more live service games that there's more mobile games, etc. And again, there's only been barely 14% of the responding are saying that there's been changes into their credit policy, which is really alarming. We're looking at most of these studios having a credit policy that has been dated from pre-2020s, right? Which doesn't seem like a lot, but it is in the gaming industry, given the pace of how fast we're moving. If you work on a live game, that's again in the case of an MMO or let's say a purely live game like Apex Legends, Fortnite, etc. If you work on a live game, how often do the credits update, add new employees or contractors to the title? And again, here we have almost 2/3 of the survey saying that they're completely unsure. This one is really ugly, because that means that even though I've been in that situation, it was a different case because I've worked at Blizzard, and in my understanding and in my own personal experience, Blizzard kind of blanket credited everyone that worked, minus subcontractors. But credited directly all employees, no matter what they were involved in, whether they were in counting, even to some extent, let's say, janitors at the Blizzard Irvine HQ and whatnot. Again, I'm not here to, let's say, clap for Blizzard's ways, but again, I've been in a situation where, yes, I've been added to, for example, Diablo 3's credit a year after working on the game, even though the game has been out for more than 4 years. So it's that continuation where we have to respect the fact that, yes, we have to respect the original credit people that have been credited, but we also have to respect the fact that some people left and other people took over that mantle, or are working as hard or have worked as equally as long on the project now. So the next part is about what we're gonna work on. And this is the big problem, is like, we don't want to just talk about the problem, because it creates a vicious cycle where we will never end, right? We want to empower everyone to have the toolkits to really fight for that fight, because again, we are not lobbyists. We're part of the IGDA. We're a nonprofit organization. We're advocates, right? We're trying to help bring solutions instead of just fighting the fight, because that's just, we're all a bunch of volunteers that are doing this on the side of their day-to-day jobs. So the big problem here is we're going to look at we're going to look at 4 pillars: discovery, strategy, toolkits, and direct actions. So your first thing in part of when it comes to discovery is that you have to ask about crediting. And again, this is going to be mostly aimed at people. It might not affect a lot freelancer, but indirectly it does, especially in your contract negotiation with your next client, right? It's to find out where you are in the mix of sure and unsure. And basically you have to ask, right? You have to ask your manager, any mentor, anyone that is in power of leadership, where are we when it comes to crediting? What is our stance? And if it's needed, even to a point where if there's a town hall or one-on-one with a leader, just ask this question. You have to start bringing up that topic, right? So is there documented credits policy within your company? You have to be able to see it. It should be available for everyone, but at the same time, you should question if it exists or not, right? And that will already raise some eyebrows. When did we last update the game credits policy? Because we're going to be looking for within the past 5 years or longer than the 5 past year. And then that's a bigger question that you should be raising to your own leadership as well. So how we think about this is, if your studio is producing live games, they may not have updated the policy to respond to game as a service, for example. If you're coming up blank on a documented policy, ask about the philosophy, right? So what is the studio's intent? You remember what we've talked in the beginning? Atari's intent was just to be like anonymous completely. There's other studios like Riot Games who consider where basically the only party to be credited in their game is just Riot Games, which it blankets the entire company without listing individual, right? This will give you a good base to start groundwork if there's no policy in place. Now, the next step is, once you understand this philosophy, this is where your company is, and you understand where your company is and where your employer is, you have to familiarize yourself with our IGDA game credit SIG, which we've launched during GDC this year. Coming up with the credit policy itself is most of the work ahead is pretty much implementation. It's really a well-documenting document that talks about attribution, different ideology of how you should be crediting people in your company, and we're hoping to help you there. When all is said and done, about 50 developers across IGDA had eyes and had a hand as well in developing this game crediting, as well as other parties. We had the help of the IGDA game localization SIG, which kind of brought the attention of how do we quantify the eligibility of someone being credited or not based on something different than their involvement in our rate at work. Because again, most of localizer, let's say, they work in a base on the premise of let's say word counts, for example. So it's been a major revision from what was originally done by the original IGDA game credit game credit SIG in 2014. And just quick note, obviously, like I said, it's completely free, but as a side note, and this is what we've realized throughout this year, as more and more people are asking us for information, this is not a legal document. It is not a legal advice. If you need help, I would request you to take this as a foundation for your own policy work before, and always involve your own legal party to get involved and rebuild this based on your own legislation in your own country, because things are different depending on if it's in the US, if it's in Latin, if it's in Europe, etc. So we launched the game update. Like I said, there's around 30 people that worked on that, and we spent around 18 months working on the revision, building up to the previous work that was all updated and relevant to the current year of 2023. When in doubt, there's always a bias toward inclusion. So when in doubt, give credit. If there's an and on, there's like a sort of on the fest situation, the question should be how to credit, not if. Like not including is a very serious offense to, like, let's say to and respect to that person's work in the game. Contractors, vendors qualify for the credit, no matter what they are, subcontractor, freelancer, whatever you want to call them. They worked on the game, they deserved credit, even if they're not full-time employee and doesn't get any sort of benefits. Roles and rather than title. And this is a very hot topic because I know there's a lot of games that love to play this whole auteur kind of, I will not, again, not name, but there's a famous developer and let's say lead studio owner that kind of show his name for the first five first credit of the game is in 5 different position, and that is just wrong. It's just it's the kind of fight that the guilds or the Actors Guild of America did back in the days with names like Alfred Hitchcock and etc. Focus on roles rather than titles. So lead designers, for example, may not be a lead designer on a particular project because the role they serve may be staff or supporting design, right? So titles are a close indicator, but roles are better in that sense. Then an employee must be credited if they leave before ship. And this is a really hot topic because I've seen a lot of this happen. I've witnessed that myself. I worked on Diablo 4 for many years during my career, yet I haven't been credited in the game, even though I only left the project roughly a year after it was launched. So that's where we fall into. Now, the strategy is to form a credit strikes team if you can afford it within your team. Okay, that means that once you're familiar with it, find people that kind of share the same mentality. Find your people, no matter what they are, whether they're junior, but it would be better to find people that are on a leadership level that can actually influence, let's say, the CEO and the C-suite of your company as well. Because at the end of the day, making games is hard, and this little bit of quality free time that we get while making games, you don't want to overdo it, and you need to define practices of how to build this sort of strike team on that end. You'll need someone in your leadership in your corner, like I've said, to support and kind of champion the development of this credit policy internally. And if you find yourself a bit lost, usually in companies that have, for example, an DEI or an ERG, anything about diversity, inclusion, and in your company, especially this is perfect for you to start the fight, because it all falls into the same topic. It's erasure, it's mislabeling, misnaming, and omission. It falls into all aspect of inclusion at the workplace. Apologies. Present the why, retention, and the moral. You have to talk about, you've seen that credits are important to 66% of the industry, and to some extent, it's a retention effort. It helps retain talent in your own studio without having them leave the studio because they feel uncredited and uncherished for the work they've done. Moral is more of a sense of pride, showing something tangible that they can show to their friends. Games can be, at the end of the day, they can be somewhat inaccessible for loved one and family members, so there's this universal language that has been created by a credit crawl, right? It's so nice to go and say to my parents, after years of them telling me, what are you doing in this gaming world, for them to see my name in the credit roll, right? And then finally, share suggested guidelines. We put forth your suggestion that you've defined as a team, and try to make work how your studio can start implementing and prepare for the conversation with your leadership as well. Now, the common issues with crediting is something I'm going to kind of speed through. Just bearing in mind the time. Getting started too late is one of the main issue that we've realized. I've witnessed that as well personally. Most of the time, crediting is an afterthought. It's being taken into consideration like literally a couple of months before the before shipping date or around the time where the build is gold. And we recommend really to have this policy and start doing crediting auditing way earlier, even to some extent at a pre-production level, just to start building your the list of names that are involved in this project. No system for name collection is another issue. I've noticed many issue where, oh, we don't even know, can't even remember who worked on this project 3 years ago. They must have all left and etc. This accurate data collection should happen. If it's not on the HR level, it should be on EP level. At this level, we're talking about usually an executive producer should be able to kind of collect and build a database of names that have and their affiliation in the project on what vertical they've been in. This is how you can kind of make sure that nobody is missed before shipping the date. Legal sign-off is important. Obviously, legal has to sign off. You're putting at the end of the day names of employees in the game, but also you need to be wise about setting yourself above the bar. You need to credit your vendors, all the teams that have worked that are considered external teams. Let's say external studios or external graphics. Let's say outsourcing studios and etc. So that policy that you have built as a strike team will need to redefine and kind of reinforce that aspect. It's unfair for just only studio employees to be credited only. In some cases, there is this role drama. And again, this is kind of what I've talked about. Either having to put roles to people's work is contentious or acknowledgement of sharing a role. The best protection for this is to develop a philosophy where where at a studio level or even from a bottom-up approach and then work against that, right? So we're talking about kind of looking at it more on a vertical slice than on a leadership role kind of execution level on the hierarchy of the company, right? If you do encounter any sort of individual pushback, you have a blanket philosophy to hold up for discussion. Finally, credits are too difficult to edit. That's something we hear a lot, but I'm kind of on the fence nowadays because, back in the days, yes, it used to be kind of heartburn on disc, or it used to be even like back in the old days, it used to be like in leaflets inside packaged goods, right? So obviously there was no edits once the game shipped, right? If there was a mistake, there was a mistake, and maybe in the next SKU shipment, things would have. The other aspect is also a lot of studios tend to overdo it in the sense they do crediting, which is they take this sort of AV system of making crediting, which is a traditional movie industry like basically video files of game of the credits, and that's just is nice, it's easy and whatnot, but at the end of the day, it's a big package file that will make your game even bigger, right? In terms of file, even if you compress it. And you have issues about audio sync and time and beautiful crawl and whatnot. So, we're looking at 2, 5, even 8 gigabytes worth of animated stuff. And I've seen this happen again at Blizzard, for example, in World of Warcraft Classic, where the animation panel was actually pretty hefty as an update. So imagine where you have to add new people in the credit after a month of them joining, or after the probation period. You have to basically edit this video and then re-upload the build just for one person. Most people are like, we can't be bothered, right? And so there's a strategy for that, and we'll talk about it quickly. And then finally, engineering and design bandwidth resource constraint, right? So at the end of the day, we're all developers, we're all making software at the end of the day, and designing a system is dev time, right? And dev time is considered as the most valuable resource on that end. So even after you have your policy and plans intention, you still need to find a solution with your engineers to build a way to have a easier editable credit feature with crawling text that's updatable. So quickly, for toolkits, here's what we have. We have an Unreal and Unity toolkit available free for use and edit on GitHub. Completely free. You can just plug that into your own build, and then you can build basically your own credit without having to create these video files that are massive. They're hosted on our IGDA GitHub as well, and and you can contribute, make use of them with the documentation and everything. Obviously, you have the design doc, a GDD design doc for those same toolkit. You have a CSV file of how you can populate your team's credit to use with that toolkit for Unreal and Unity. And as promised, you can scan this QR code that will redirect you directly into the final, basically where you can download everything. And here's what it looks like. You have some file bugs. In terms of direct action, I would recommend filing them as bugs when you have discredited a topic. For example, what should be the expected result? Remember, credits are a feature of your game at the end of the day, so they should be considered as a Jira bug. Yes, add more Jira tasks to your producers to manage. And then the call of action is my final thing. Sorry if I'm speeding up on this. You have to keep your relationship development with vendors, part-time worker. That's on you to lead. You have, and then check out the IGDA site. We also find your allies and people that can help you in this. Discuss policy with your employer. Check out the credit toolkit that we've made available for everyone. And then finally, join our Discord if you want to ask for any sort of guidance or any sort of solution. Again, we are not lawyers here. We cannot fight your fight, but we can guide you in the best way possible. And then finally, as I've said, feel free to ask for guidance for your company. We're here to help. We're as advocate as we want. We're ready to help, but we will not be able to fight your fight on your behalf. And that's it. Obviously, it's a game credit topic. So here's the credit of all the people that were involved in this making of this panel, as well as making. And finally, you can also scan for one last time, and we will probably drop in the QA stage. We'll drop the link directly just to make your life easier. And thank you for having me.
Really, really great presentation.
Sorry.
Hope you can hear me there. One question from the Discord. You mentioned
Yes.
that the manager, CEO putting their name in the first 5 roles as an example of a credit faux pas. What is the correct way of crediting yourself if you're realistically part of most aspects of development? Should it be summarized under a single role, such as lead designer, or something like director instead?
So the general approach is that you shouldn't be credited in more than one vertical. That's the general aspect. The example of the CEO is more because it's closer to what the movie industry does these days, right? Especially the old movies, where you would see like written by Alfred Hitchcock, produced by Alfred Hitchcock, directed by Alfred Hitchcock, and then you're 5 names in before you start seeing the main actor. And that's, again, this is the opening credit, right? Which is quite rare in the gaming industry, but it's starting to become enormous, especially in heavily narrative driven games. And that's the let's say the taboo that the guilds, let's say the Actors Guild of America, the only, let's say, solid policy guideline about crediting let's say artists in a media perspective, have fought against, right? Because it was used as a tool to sort of like gatekeep others to kind of boost their careers and become more than just, I don't know, a boom mic holder, right, in the movie.
Sure. What if you're a solo dev and you've really done the bulk of the work and maybe programming, maybe some of the art yourself and all that sort of thing? Do you have any recommendations for that?
I think this one is obviously a special case, right? I mean, I don't think there's many games that have 1 to 2 other, but in this case, it's just a very simple thing. You just have to credit yourself, right? Obviously, you have also the legal aspect where you have to credit tools, engines, licenses, fonts, etc. And so those are taken into this aspect. But also you might have, your way you want to credit friends and families. You want to credit, again, we are not into pushing for these things. I've seen like some crazy credits where they've been crediting dogs and their pets before they've credited actual contractors on their project. But to some extent, let's say there's no obligation if you're a solo dev to credit yourself. Obviously, you're there, you're the main owner, your name appears on your, let's say, your self-founded studio appears, but it's just in the case of having more than one party is a must.
Sounds good. Quick question about Moby Games, which is kind of a site that most people go to check out what sort of credits they have. Any thoughts about that site in general, or working with them, or?
So I have a again, this is not me representing IGDA in any shape or form or my employer. This is my personal opinion on Moby Games. Moby Games, at the end of the day, is a crowd-sourced platform, right? It's based with voluntary with volunteers that are kind of like auditing all this paperwork and all these data entry point. At the end of the day, the work is super slow. I don't blame them. Obviously, it's built by volunteers, and volunteers being, even though it's owned by the mother company that owns GameSpot. But at the end of the day, there is a bias here, because there is no way to prove that if the data on Moby Games actually is eligible or not. I'll give you an example. I've worked on almost every single game that were launched in Blizzard from roughly from 2018 to 2021. Yet on Moby Game, I am not listed on those, even though they are clearly noted in other forms. So that's the problem. It's because it's the self-appointed measure where you have to add yourself in the data, and you have to be basically approved by the unknown, is, in my opinion, is not a source to really legitimize your career. And the only way to legitimize this is for your credits, for your name to be in the actual credit of the game.
Yeah, their submission policy is basically to record the credit scene at the end of the thing and then submit it. And I actually have this interesting situation where I worked on a live game for 3 years, and my role in this project evolved over time. So even if I submit the credits in this live game that's still live, I will only get the credit for the last role I had in the game, which is also complicated.
Yeah, because you have the aspect also of title change, right? How do you attribute title change, and how do you attribute, let's say, hierarchy as well within a certain vertical? And again, the toolkits are here. The policy does explain these aspects and how to kind of build a hierarchy based on that, and based on like where are you positioned during shipping, right? Because I don't know, for example, at the time when you started the project, you probably were assistant producer. By the time you launched the project, you were producer. So obviously it's more than fair to be put in the production lead attribution, rather than the position below it. Even if another producer joined on board, the measure is here by time of involvement in the project. If these two lead producer have a difference of days, months, years working on the project, obviously one should be above the other.
Fantastic. We're way over time, so we're going to cut it off here. But again, thank you very much. Wonderful presentation.
No worries. Okay, thanks for having me.
Great. Thanks, everyone.
Yeah.
Games. We've got two terrific speakers here representing the Female Gaming Finland RU, which is an association for women and gender minorities of all ages in gaming and esports. And they aim to promote the position of the target group in the gaming community in Finland and in worldwide. The president of the organization is Mariana Mättälä, who is studying social work and has worked as a game educator and an esports coach. Kristiina Piiriläinen is an event producer who is oriented towards gaming events. She finished her thesis about how to get more women and non-binary gamers attending gaming events. And with that, I'll hand it over to you guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Do you want to start, Marianne?
Yeah, I can start. So first, hello everyone at We Love Games 2023. Hope you've had a wonderful day so far, and we are happy with Kristiina to be here to talk about our association, Female Gaming Finland RY.
Yes.
So Christopher told a bit at first what our association is for. But first, we wanted to introduce ourselves. So my name is Marianne Mättälä, and I am the chairwoman of Female Gaming Finland RY. And I'm a master's student in social work. And I've been working a lot as a game educator and esports coach. And I've been working with kids, youth, and also adults. And I'm also interested in my studies, like how we could use games as a tool in social and healthcare in Finland.
Nice.
And I'm also been with FGF since the beginning, and I was also founding it when we launched at first.
Yeah, so we have Marianne, who is really professional in this association, and then there is me, Kristiina Piirainen, as Christopher told you. This is my first year in Female Gaming Finland. This year I am being one of the board members, and like Christopher told you, my profession is event and culture producer, and I am finishing my thesis for assembly organizing about how to get more women and non-binary gamers attend assembly events. I studied topics like what do they think about those events, why haven't they attended, and what would it take to make them interested enough that they would want to attend assemblies. And thesis is coming out in December, so you are going to have to wait it for a little bit longer. And I think we can start with telling you more about Female Gaming Finland.
Yes. So first, we want to talk about the founding process and how it all started. So basically, we got the idea in summer 2019. The idea to found Female Gaming Finland came basically through our own experiences as female gamers in the gaming culture. And we also met through the FPS game, and then we thought like, why isn't there any organized events or stuff like this in gaming culture in Finland for female players? And we thought that it would really much be needed since we felt like all the events are basically filled with men, and for us it wasn't basically so comfortable to think that we would join the events. So that's how we decided to found it ourselves and start working with the topic ourselves. And we basically, when we started to get the idea about our association, we also wanted to include gender minorities in the process, because we know they also face discrimination and lots of unpleasant experiences when they join the gaming culture too. and we became an official association in November 2019. And currently we have 5 persons in the board, and we also have like 20 volunteers currently. We have 50 official members, and we actually have something like 750 persons in our Discord community. So it's a bit more than in the slide. And then we maybe want to talk a bit like why. So I know most who are here today are also already professionals in the gaming field. So I think most people know that there's lots of research about the topic, and the issue is real, that it's not so easy for women and gender minorities to join the gaming culture, and they still face discrimination. And with the gaming culture, we mean lots of things. For example, it's harder for women and gender minorities to take part in events and activities related to gaming, but also taking part in, for example, esports. If you want to join an esports team, it's not so easy. You don't know where to start, what to do. And also we know working in gaming field isn't necessarily so easy for women and minorities. And even gaming itself, it's not so easy. For example, most of the female gamers hide their voices and sex. They cannot join voice chat and stuff like this. And there has been a lot of progress and studies about the topic in the last few years. And it has been a pleasure for me, at least, to see that lots of professionals in Finland want to discuss about these things and want to make the gaming culture more equal in Finland. But still, the issues lie deep, and there's still lots of work to be done.
Yes, and next we are going to tell you about how female gaming Finland is, could I say, facing these problems and trying to solve them, and why and how we are making, could I say, world better place. So even though our main mission is to maintain discussion about those topics and spread the word, I think one of our most important jobs has been and is still to provide the community with safer space. The community is entirely virtual community, and there are also Swedish and English speaking participants. It has been nice to see how participants have made the community their own. They have conversations, they look out for gaming friends, and then they play together. And they have actually, like, they are active in the community. So, well, not maybe all those more 700 and more people, but there is like a core part of it that is really active, and it is really nice to see. And I think it is good to say that our community, for some people, might be the first place where they meet other women or gender minority gamers. And about events, how do we maintain our community? Mainly virtual events. For 2 years now we have had game nights that go with the name Monthly Monday, and it has been done in cooperation with online youth work of City of Pori. And we also have participated in gaming events such as Assembly Summer and Winter, Vectorama, and Stage 142. And sometimes we have a booth where we can meet our people, and sometimes we just attend and meet the participants when someone comes and talks to us. And with these events, we enable meetings and new connections between our community members. We want to ensure that everyone feels that they are welcome to the community as they are. Marianne probably can tell you more about these events we have had and participated, and maybe a little bit about also our previous cooperations with other organizations.
Yeah, I can tell a few examples. So, for example, related to events, we've had an LGBTQ discussion event with Yle about games. We've also hosted a peer support group together with Naisten linja Finland, so basically a women's line for women who have faced online violence through video games. Also, I have been talking, for example, in Helsinki Pride. The discussion was hosted by Non-Toxic Project in Finland. And related to cooperation going on, we've had lots of it. We're, for example, working together with game researchers towards a more equal gaming culture. So we're kind of like helping the research field on the topic. We've also been part of multiple projects and are strongly working together with Finnish gaming field. For example, like Christina said, we work together with Assembly and different universities and universities of applied sciences. We work together with different esports teams, gaming spaces in Finland, and like I said, Non-Toxic Project, for example. And when it comes to like prices and stuff like that, we've had some help with Logitech, for example.
Thank you. That was really good. And well, you got the point through, and we do a lot of cooperation with many organizations. And last 2 points in this slide are quite the same. We want to keep women and gender minority gamers visible in discussions, so we attend events, also giving presentations and speeches and telling about these topics and promoting our members. And yeah, and next slide is a little bit about his our membership. As we are an official association, we have memberships to offer. Right now, as we said in the beginning, we have 50 official members, and we have 3 types of memberships: official and youth members, who are women and non-binary gamers, and we also have supportive members, who are other private persons or organizations or businesses. And this supportive membership is open to anyone who wants to support our work. What we want to underline in this slide is that organizations can support our work either being a member, providing membership benefits, or becoming our partner. And right now, being a member is more of a supportive act towards us, and we are all the time looking for new benefits, and developing our membership is one of the key actions for the year 2024. More about our future in the next slide. Do I tell about membership and collaboration?
Yeah.
Yeah, I can tell about those. I wasn't sure if you have some first words for this slide, but let's continue. I can tell about these. So, like I told you, next year we want to make our membership more clear, and the benefits for members more clear. What do you get when you are a member? we have few to none benefits to offer right now, so getting more of those is something we really need to work on. And benefits also need to be inviting and especially chosen for our target group. And one kind of membership benefit would also be member exclusive events, lectures, tournaments, and so on. Also, second point for next year is collaborations, and it is very much connected to membership development. As mentioned, we would like to have more support members who enable our work via donations, but also partners who offer membership benefits and support our work via resources and cooperation. For example, can you tell about education and esports, Marianne?
Yeah, education and esports are something we want to work on during next year, but also these are like overall visions for our the future of our association. So we would really much like to focus on education. We already can educate others about our topic. For example, we can educate interested partners and overall people who are interested in this field. But we are also planning to create a whole educational package with, for example, lecture materials, etc. And related to esports, next year we want to organize tournaments and other esports related activities. Basically, overall, we want to make it easier for our target group to take part in esports. And also related to this, we are hoping for cooperation with tournament organizers, esports teams, and others related to esports field. Maybe in the future we'll even have a chance to coach coach the people who attend to our events and stuff like that. We have organized one tournament so far by ourselves, and the ones who joined the tournament liked it a lot and we're hoping for more events like that. So it's clear that people would like to participate in the tournaments organized by us.
Yeah, and I would like to say for this also that by esports we don't. I think it can also be more casual tournament. It doesn't have
Yes.
to be like fully professional.
Yeah, for example, in the tournament we organized, we didn't basically reward the best team. We basically gave the rewards for random people so that you could get a reward for just joining the tournament.
Yep. And we are going to the ending slides. So if you have questions or if you want to partner Female Gaming Finland, you can put some email for Marianne or me, or just in general hallitus@femalegamingfinland.fi. If you put to the last email, it will go to all our board members and someone will answer for you, but it will reach us anyway. And of course, nowadays it is this is like mandatory slide. So follow us on social media if you use, for example, Facebook or Instagram. And we have an old Twitter account, but it's nowadays X account.
Yeah.
And go check our website too.
Yeah. So thank you very much and we are really happy to be here. Next is questions, I think.
Yep.
Indeed. Thank you very much for this presentation and all the work that you're doing. I'm really happy to see more people like you getting out there and really trying to rally the community to get people more on board. Thank you very much for this presentation. Just a quick bit of information for people in the audience that aren't necessarily from Helsinki or Finland, don't know what Assembly is. I'd just say that it's an event that has its roots in the demo scene going back to the 90s, but it's really grown in a lot of different directions, becoming sort of one of the premier e-sporting events in Finland and probably the Nordics, but it also has game jams and talks and attracts cosplayers, and it's really got something for everyone. It's one of my favorite events that happens in the year. And do you have any advice for event organizers who want to make their events feel more welcoming for everyone?
Yeah.
Do you have something like this to throw, Marianne? I have a few ideas.
Yeah, it's a hard question, first of all, because we all know the issue lies really deep. Like, for example, I can still hear that a kid who's 8 years old is told in school that you're not allowed to play video games since you're a girl. Those are for boys. So first of all, we need to understand how deep this kind of thing starts. And if you just keep hearing through your entire life, you cannot play games because you're a girl, of course, it affects you. So first of all, we need to think about marketing. Usually, for example, when I look at the advertisements for events, they are always made with black colors, for example, and maybe colors that are not considered as so feminine, for example. And all these pictures about events, we can often see only male players there. And esports teams, for example, they are really like related to sports. For example, we have sports shirts and again, male players in every picture. So those kind of things already kind of make it harder for female players and minorities to join the scene. But marketing is like the first thing that comes to my mind. And do you have more more tips,
Yeah.
Christina?
Yeah, one thing I think you should consider also is what games do you play in your event and what games do you like put on the pedestal, I could say. Like, for example, it has been showed in research that female gamers mainly, of course not all, but some of them play more, for example, puzzle games or adventure games. So CSGO or CS2 for nowadays, it's not probably like the thing they are like, I want to go with that.
Yeah, indeed. I mean, when I was working at Rovio, we had sort of a psychological test thing that would basically sort of categorize you. Do you play like a woman or do you play like a man? And because I like more collaborative games and I like more puzzle games, I come across as a psychological profile as a woman, basically, which is kind of interesting to look at. I don't know, or I haven't heard of any sort of esports events where there's like a collaborative type event that's happening where you get maybe everybody in Minecraft working towards a common goal. Have you organized events like this in the past, or have you thought about doing something like this?
We haven't, but I think that would be like one of the good starting points. Or like The Sims is also something you could have like a competition who builds the best house or whatever.
Yeah, that's also what we have considered. Like, we have the possibility to also organize our own looking esports. Like, we don't have to use games like CS2 or League of Legends or stuff like this. Even though I know many people in our community enjoy CS2 or CSGO and League of Legends, stuff like this.
Yeah, the idea is making it inclusive and making everybody feel welcome.
Yeah.
Going back to the supporting members, somebody like myself, who's a white male, I would be welcome to join your organization as a supportive member. Did I understood that correctly? Yeah.
Yes.
Yes, you did.
And mostly our events are also open for, like, for example, men. Like, we haven't yet organized any event that would be only for like female players or gender minority players. Like if you're interested in the topic, you can join.
Yeah, that sounds fantastic. And personally, as a non-competitive player myself, I'd probably find myself more welcome at one of your events than participating in any type of other event where there's more competition and more grinding to skill, but being able to participate in a more collaborative way where awards are given out based on sort of subjective criteria and this type of thing. I just find that very rewarding. And again, I feel it's more community building in a way as well.
Yep. Yeah, and I think monthly Mondays that I mentioned in the presentation are like good because they are we have I forgot the word, but mainly our community decides what do they want to play, and usually the games are like broken phone or drawing and stuff like that. So it is really easy to join even if you haven't ever played anything.
Yeah, and you can join just watch while others are playing, and you don't have to talk anything if you're not feeling comfortable yet. But usually, like people attend one monthly Monday, but then next time they'll join actively.
Sounds great. That wraps up all the questions that we have for you. If you have nothing else to add, we can end it here. But again, thank you for all the wonderful work that you're doing. It's really important.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, we're hoping to grow.
Yep. Indeed.
Best of luck to you.
Thank you very much.
Have a nice event, rest of the event, I could say.
Yeah.
Thank you. Okay, and welcome back. Right now we've got Kim Kupiainen from Huge Games here. He is a prominent figure in the Finnish game industry, known for his role as a game producer and active leadership within IGDA Finland. He's got a career deeply rooted in the world of gaming and has not only contributed to the creation of captivating, innovative games, but has also made a significant impact in fostering a more inclusive and compassionate game development community. With that, Kim, I'll let you take over.
Hey, thanks, Chris, and welcome everybody. I already hope that you're doing well, and I hope that this presentation will give you some preliminary thoughts to muster up your own career. So what we're going to be talking about today is production with love, cultivating creativity by showing you care. Before that, a little bit about me. So, hi, I'm Kim Kupiainen. I'm producer at Huge Games. I'm a very proud dog owner and human that cares, and always aspiring to be a problem solver. There you can see me enjoying some quality time with my dog, and sometimes also working on games and doing VR and all that kind of stuff. Currently working in a mobile industry. So what had to happen in order for me to grow into this type of career was a lot of weird stuff going on during your childhood. I grew up in the boondocks of Kannus. Some people know the place. Most of you probably don't. It's a 6,000 person city in the middle of Ostrobothnia. And yeah, like my childhood was interesting. I had cool friends to play airsoft with, and we also played video games and all that jazz. But then there were some very dark times with like having cancer as a kid and having to cope with the fact that, you know, you kind of have to deal with your own mortality before turning 13 years old. So that was a very, very, I think, an important thing in learning and growing about understanding empathy better, also towards other people. So yeah, my background is vast because of that. Somehow I survived, and I had a lot of this unexpected time to do all kinds of stuff to become better as a human being and as a person on like getting stuff done. So then I'd go from nursing to chemistry to security to carpentry to media studies and finally becoming a light technician. Also did some freelance designer and session gig musician side jobs here and there. And then I got employed at Bytecore, which was the first game company I worked for. It was held by Antti Meriläinen with his cousin Ari Ruotsalainen, and we'd create a game, the three of us, with Game Maker, and we'd publish it to Xbox, PlayStation 4, and finally on Steam PC. So that was some very, very cool times. I went to school after that, and within the 2 years, I had 4 published games, and I also worked as a part of the Finnish Army Simulator in the very early prototyping phase. And I started as a IGDA Finland Kajaani hub lead at 2019, so year before the COVID or so. I think this all has been very valuable for me, and I've learned so much due to attending to a bunch of things. So, you know, being proactive usually can be rewarded if you can muster up the spirit to do it. And being proactive also comes with this other side benefit of actually getting to know some cool people who know way more than you do. And that means mentors. So we have Ilkka Vallo and Julius Fondem and Tatu Teittinen and Tatu Petersen Jensen and Tommi Krogerus. Bunch of cool people. Well, probably you guys recognize most of these persons, at least one of them on the production track. And Julie Dijkstra, the lady in the picture, is an amazing human being who actually hosts this production Discord where there's over 3,000 people that are either wanting to break into game production or are already working on game production related stuff. So get contacted with people. I know most of you people are probably also on site in the We Love Games, so get acquainted with the people in the room. That's very important for you. Public service announcement before we go into the topic itself. I do not represent any of the past or present or future companies I work for when giving any of my talks now or in future. I want to keep this as a very important highlight because it can then impact the view on the company. And I feel like the only person I can represent when giving these talks is really myself. So let's go into the topic. I'm not sure if you guys are aware of game production, but there's this meme going around like there's only 3 kinds of game producers. The Akimbo Harry Potter, I guess, and the one saying no, and the one spreading the love all around. Like these are the 3 variants. And some of you might feel like I'm in this photo and I don't like it. But what if I told you there's a 4th type of producer? Yes, if you watched Hercules the movie as a kid, or even later down the line, you probably noticed that Phil guy kind of has a very producer vibe to him. He's trying to train Hercules to do Herculean tasks. And this is pretty much the way I try to go on about the teams. That does not mean that you're supposed to be some Greek half god to be good. But I'm still supposed to help you out with your training and your focus areas in a way it supports you as a developer, and ultimately you as a developer can support the product that we're trying to do. So this is the important part, and why this is important is because this way we can also start building clear career paths for people on where to focus. And then comes your personal values. And I think this should always reflect with the company that you're going to work for. So when applying for companies, don't just apply for any company, because might be that your values are not the same as the company values. So for me, it's all about being authentic. I can speak how I feel. I can also be stoic. So like in the face of uncertainty, I will still stand there and be like, okay, this is what's going on. And then I can start to plan out how are we going to mitigate the uncomfortable parts of not knowing exactly what's going to happen next, because we're working in a very complex environment. And then also integrity. So I'm going to stick to my guns. And while doing that, I'm going to be empathetic towards other people to the best of my abilities. Obviously, we all have our dark sides. And also altruism. So that means doing good whenever I can with the resources I have. That's the vibe I want to go for. My personal values. So reflect on your personal values, what you want to do and what you want to achieve. That's highly important for you before you go into actually doing the production work. And how does the first day look like? It's like, yes, I have this pizza for the team and it's all gonna be cool. It's gonna be nice. But then you look at the stuff and it's like, oh, okay, I guess the game is not working as intended. The devs are trying to do something about it. The rest of the production is pretty much lying on its back and needs to be helped by the design also to get up. And QA is looming there thinking like, okay, how do I make bug tickets out of this insanity that I'm perceiving? When you're in this situation, the most important thing to remember is to not be the next LinkedIn post that I'll send. this is easy to forget. Very easy, and that's why it's also scary. So somebody posted that grapes must be crushed to make wine, diamonds form under pressure, olives are pressed to release oil, and seeds grow in the darkness. So whenever you feel crushed under pressure, pressed, or in darkness, you're in a powerful place of transformation. Trust the process. As said, I'm going to only be representing myself, and I'm going to say that this kind of thinking is bullshit. Sorry for the strong words, but the grapes don't drink the wine, the olives don't get to dip bread in the oil, and the seeds don't eat the crops, and the coal is not the one to wear the diamond. So taking suffering and crushing oppression for benefit of a chosen few and attempting to cast it as a virtuous thing is both stupid and dangerous. So when you're a producer, always try to play so that you're playing for the side of the team. The team might not always appreciate it, but ultimately you're a serving leader and your job is to help out the team to feel good and be able to deliver the stuff that they need to deliver. And it's important to connect with the staff, show your employees that you genuinely care, advocate for your team. So if there's a bad process, for example, you're there to challenge that bad process and practice open and honest two-way communication. I try to do it in a way where I ask for what are your do's and don'ts as a team member? What do you like? What do you want me to do and help you out with? What you don't want me to touch? And then I'll tell you exactly what I'm expecting also. And this way it's easier for us to align, and then we can be fair and neutral towards each other, regardless of what are the topics we're discussing. So empowering the employees and also rewarding them. To get back to that at a later point in time. So yeah, if you believe that the employees are your most valuable assets, then act accordingly. And you can't influence others when you are not authentic, so you need to get to know your people. As said, the do's and don'ts will help you, and being the serving leader, coach, and you will get respect from those who work with you or under you. I try to, I know that this is worded under you, but as a producer, I also try to think, regardless of whatever is the structure in the company, we are in the same team. And yeah, on paper, I might be your above you, still doesn't change the fact that we're part of the same team and I'm there to support you, not to be their barking commands. And this also leads into understanding okay, what is the stage of development your team is in, your project is in. Considering junior versus staff versus senior, people need different amounts of support. In the early stages, they need more, and later down the line, they need less, and sometimes even your supportive aligned wrong, it can become destructive. So you need to be very mindful of who you support and how much in comparison. And usually it's better for you to find somebody that is more capable to support. And yeah, that kind of brings me back to the Hercules thing. Phil here knows how to shoot a bow. I don't know how he learned it, but he knows how to shoot a bow. Therefore, he's capable on teaching Hercules on how to shoot a bow. If you are not knowledgeable about how to shoot a bow, don't go teaching Hercules on how to shoot a bow, because, as said, it will be dangerous. And obviously, internal battles wise, when you're a leader, you're going to have those internal battles. You're going to have family life. You're going to have all things. We're spending 8 hours a day in work. Stuff that happens at home might reflect at work, vice versa. So be very aware of your internal battles, how things affect each other. And, also try to use those internal battles. Like, I'm not saying that you need to suppress all the feelings that you have. The key component question is, how do I turn this evil force inside me into something constructive and helpful for the other people? That's the thing that I'd like you to consider in the future. And before putting people into different kinds of situations, we will put this video rolling. So we have here Hercules training on how to do their stuff. And this is how you should approach with the team. Make sure that whatever you're going to put them through, they're ready for it and they know what it takes and they have the power and resources to deliver. So let's say that if Hercules was not ready for this stage, Phil wouldn't put him through it, because it would lead into a lot of accidents and looks pretty dangerous. So therefore, be very mindful and always be kind of listening to the team on how are they feeling about their current progress and understanding and skill set. If they need help with that, then be ready to deliver. Also keeping in mind that when you're cultivating learning, given that's the place where you need to put resources, not all learnings are for everybody. Because, some people would like to learn about stuff, but then they like more the idea of learning about the thing than they actually like learning the thing. So then it's a question of how do we actually negotiate this? What is the expected amount of learning that I'm supposed to do? What are the resources I have as a team member? And how can you support me? Or is there somebody else in the team that can support me? And through this, then cultivate that learning to the best of your ability. I think at Critical Force, we did this really nice when I was working there. We had this Learn and Grow initiative where people were able to use Fridays to just learn anything. We really don't control what you want to learn. We want you to take the ownership of going towards the direction that interests you the most. And that has then later down the line manifested into people being able to deliver new things that they wouldn't have been able to deliver, given they were not given the possibility to take the time to learn these things. And of course, like in all learning and all doing, failure is part of the process. So, it's fine to take a beating every now and then. If we start to take the beating multiple times in a row, that's where we need to recognize how ready are we for this challenge. And then the question is, how can we muster it up so that we are ready for the challenge, so that we don't get beat up multiple times? And if the job is to get beat up every now and then, it's also about taking your own headspace after that. Understanding what makes you tick, mitigating the things you do not like, maximizing the things you like to the extent it can be in the company, and then hold healthy boundaries. I know this is a bit of a meme, but I used to, like, if I was going off to a holiday, I would send this message to the channel, while actually people would know that regardless of Kim going on a holiday, you can actually just contact him. It's fine. But it was me manifesting my inner Ron Swanson to just say, hey guys, as little amount of things, please, if possible. And it worked very nicely. Also, keeping in mind, since I'm giving this talk now in English, remember that if something sounds off, give me the benefit of the doubt, because this is a secondary language that I'm speaking. We are all working in a tech environment, a complex environment, and in addition to that, most of us are actually not native English speakers. So that means that we are always translating in our heads what we're going to say. And it can become very cumbersome, and it can add an additional boundary of being able to converse about the problems that we face due to the fact that we are limited by the usage of our language. So staying mindful and empathetic towards people about that, giving them the benefit of the doubt, very important. And processes, I think this is probably one of those ways where you can help people on making things better. And I will give you an example about that. So I was working in a company and we had an art team that were crunching on a 6-week interval. They were trying to deliver art assets and they continuously decayed the amount of art assets they could deliver because they were always having to hurry, and there were a lot of sick leaves and bad vibes. No one felt the pride on their work because there was no time for feedback sessions, because there was always the next release looming ahead, and that was the way that team worked. Then I became part of that team and started helping the people out. And we took a very practical view on how can we help this situation. So started iterating. Step 1 was to embrace outsourcing, like, okay, what is the amount of assets we actually need to do, and can we use outsourcing to help us? Can we use some other company to create, for example, cool weapon skins for us instead of us trying to do everything internally? And we did that. And then for what we did internally, we started to put our hand on the pulse, like, okay, how long will this one asset take around or so? Obviously, people like to work in different styles, so some people would actually work on multiple items at once, and through that then find everything done at the same time, where others like to do it one by one. And obviously, very important stage for us was also to make sure that people have the time to see a doctor and get their stuff figured out, so nobody's burning out because okay, I have this underlying sickness that I'm not treating because I'm working all the time. People can go to that path, especially when they're passionate about things that they love. So that's very important to take care of. Unblock delivered by getting rid of as many bottlenecks as possible. So if we had bad processes, bad pieces on the process, we would rip those out and then think, okay, what can we replace this with? And obviously, the implementation of work lasts exactly how long it lasts. That was how we went on about it. And then the new state was that after these things that we did, team was working on a 10-week interval, always delivering the agreed amount of content, which was more than original one. No need to hurry. We are building something always now one release ahead of the current version. And additionally, the team was delivering 7 times the amount of content compared to the original 6-week interval. And there was no crunch. I met with the art lead just a few weeks ago, or actually a week ago during Northern Game Summit, and she thanked me for helping the team to find better tools and to find their way forward from this. And that's where I felt really awesome last time, because obviously at the time it was very chaotic and very scary for whole team. But now, like 1 year after that, somebody comes back to you and they're like, hey, thank you. That's kind of the vibe you want to go for if you want to be the feel for Hercules. More about that at a later point in time. So before ending the thing, just gonna point out junior mistakes. Feel free to screenshot, feel free to take a picture of this slide and make sure that if you want to be a producer, remember this stuff. These are your go-to junior mistakes, and how you handle them, I'll leave it up to you. But I'm confident that at some point in time, if you become a producer, you will aspire and you will be able to be the guy who achieved something similar. So Hercules, now the cool team is returning back after releasing a really cool game. And then the names are manifesting into the stars. And probably there's somebody who remembers that, like at least you as a producer do. And somebody points out, hey, that was your team that did that. That's the vibe you want to aspire for as a producer, in my opinion. And that's the best way to build empathy in general. Remember that we all start somewhere and we all have our paths to travel. With that, thank you. And my DMs are open. You can find me on Facebook, you can find me on Twitter, you can find me on LinkedIn. I'm also in the We Love Games Discord channel, and I'm also in IGDA channels. So thank you. LinkedIn. I'm also in the. I'm sorry, I'm borderline hearing you.
Hey, just thank you for this wonderful talk. Again, reach out to Kim if you have any questions about the talk or the presentation, or you're just looking to sort of level up your own skills. And in production, I think empathy is an incredible skill to have as a producer, because it really is about managing the team. I find that producers typically break down into a couple different sort of schemes, people that are dealing more with stakeholder management or the product itself, and sometimes let the team slide or are not focused enough on the team. And just a comment that crunch is never effective. There are all these studies that show that just leads to burnout and unhappiness and just people working inefficiently, and that rest and taking care of the team and taking care of oneself is crucially important.
Great.
Any thoughts on stakeholder management when it comes to this and when it comes to protecting the team, particularly when you're working with external developers, teams that are located in a different place than where you are, in terms of achieving your goals, and how to protect the people that you're working with?
So when it comes to stakeholder management, like from executive level, for example, what I aspire to do is first and foremost remind that we're all human beings here. Like we can create a timeline, but ultimately we have very many factors that can impact what is going to actually happen. So like, same as the map is not the territory, that's kind of the way I try to take into when we're doing stuff with the team. And for externals especially, like we might have an agreement that something will be delivered by some amount of time, and then like let's say that, for example, I remember from the past having one deal with one Ukrainian company, and then the war happened. So like at that point in time, it's very reasonable to think that, okay, maybe things are not going to arrive at the exact time that we are expecting them to. And, it doesn't need to go into force majeure like war and that stuff. It can be just, okay, unfortunate sick leaves. And then the company will probably contact us already and be like, hey, we're sorry. We probably we seem like we're not capable on doing this thing. And I think that's a very good place of opening up the discussion in general. Like, okay, managing expectations. That's basically what you try to do with all the different parties. Was it shareholders, execs, or even the team members? I'm the type of producer who's going to say that I'm not going to write your Jira tickets for you. I'm an avid believer that you are more acknowledgeable about what you actually need to deliver and do. So if you want your job to reflect in the backlog, so we have more clarity on where are we actually going, I'd advise you to do it instead of me.
Yeah, I think that's great advice. One comment here in the Discord that says, "Thank you for your speech, Kim. I just wanted to say that in my opinion, you are one of the most inspiring and encouraging individuals in the industry, and your quote, embrace the fail, unquote, advice lives rent-free in my head and has already helped me greatly."
Thank you. I'm glad to hear that. And it's part of the process. I've never done something perfectly if I've been doing it for the first time in my life. Somehow. I don't know how that happens, but somehow it seems to be so that no perfect execution after the very first time.
Not only that, but every team has a sort of iterative approach to everything in terms of what can the team actually achieve, how do we set all the milestones, and you kind of need to track a whole bunch of data and understand how you're doing. And rather than trying to go after milestones that have been set by somebody else or a company or a roadmap, focus on what can we actually achieve and kind of cycle back through that and just make sure that you're sort of competing with yourselves to just constantly strive to be better or get things right, because production, everything always goes wrong somehow.
Yes.
And dealing with that. So
yeah.
And I guess with that, since we're a bit over time, we'll wrap things up. I'll just add that the next two talks will premiere on YouTube at their scheduled times. They are pre-recorded talks. So there will be some, I guess, question taking in Discord, but there will not be introductions. There will not be moderated by myself. So thank you, Kim.
Thank you. It was nice being here.
I'm looking forward to catching up at future events like we do.
That's what we do. Love you guys. Bye.
Bye.